Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half German on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a couple of times before. The Swedish brewery is one of my most reviewed breweries here on the channel. I've had some awesome beers from these guys over the years, lots of different styles. The German brewery, on the other hand, I think has featured on the channel just 2 or 3 times before. But they've got a very good reputation, and the beer that we're going to look at today is a style that they are very highly regarded with. So yeah, this one I think could make for a really interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again for the home brewery. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing the Gothenburg beers, because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review, we are going to return to Stigbergets Bryggeri once again. So this particular beer is called Gouge Away. It comes in at 14.5% ABV, so it's a bit of a monster. And this one is an Imperial Stout with cacao, coffee and hazelnut added into it, and it's brewed in collaboration with Sudden Death Brewing Co, who are from Timmendorfer Strand near Lübeck in Schleswig-Holstein in the northwest of Germany. So yeah, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. Sudden Death are really highly regarded in the Imperial Stout category, of course, but they're doing a few more IPAs and things these days from what I've seen, and Stigbergets, as we know, are one of the best known Swedish craft breweries, mainly known for their hazy New England IPAs, but I have had some awesome Imperial Stouts and things from these guys over the years as well. But yeah, I can't remember exactly when this beer was released. I think it might have been in January or February of 2021, but it's been sitting in my fridge for a wee while. It came out as part of one of the Timmendorfer assortments, and I just kind of felt that I needed an Imperial Stout. It's been I need a little bit of inspiration for an essay, so I thought we should open up an Imperial Stout and have something to sip on while I write that. But yeah, certainly curious to see how it turns out, as I said earlier, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. A 14.5% Imperial Stout with cacao, coffee and nuts in it, so that should be really interesting. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Stigbergets Bryggeri and from Sudden Death Brewing. We will no doubt add more to both of those lists in the near future. I do need to see about getting some more beers from Sudden Death because it's been too long. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the German beers. The Swedish one is added to all the time. The German one is added to whenever I get the opportunity. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about the breweries, and we'll kick off with Stigbergets since these guys are the home brewery. So Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've told you before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So these guys own 2 bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and the Hagabjörn's Cafe, which are located on Linnegatan in the city, and these both opened back in 2007. And this building is actually an independent cinema, which I didn't realise until I went to visit it. And if you want to have a little look, you can check out my out and about video that I filmed there back in like October of 2019. So just put that in, write those names in, Bar Kino, into the channel, and that'll pop up for you. Really nice place, and I do hope that I can go back and check it out a little bit more fully next time. But originally, the idea that these guys had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, and this led to them kegging and selling the beer to other pubs before eventually bottling it beginning in November of 2014. The original beers that they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but they really started to make their name when they focused on more American style beers. And the original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is also one of the co-owners of OO Brewing, and he was the one who really started off the whole haze craze in Sweden. He was the creator of the GBG Beer Week beer for 2016, the Amazing Haze, both of which came out under the Stigbergets name, and also the Narangi, which was released under his own company OO, and he was really highly regarded, or is still really highly regarded in the New England IPA category. But he stayed with the company until early 2017, at which time he moved to expand OO Brewing, and then he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana, near Chicago over in America. But soon after Ole left, they moved to a new brewery at Partihalarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they also began working on some sour beers in that brewery as well. They started selling their beers in these 440 milliliter cans as well, and this has allowed them to export a lot more. This one is actually a little bit unusual in the fact that it's in a 440 milliliter can rather than a 330, which is usually what they do with the bigger beers like this, so I'm not sure what the exact reason for that is, but anyway. But these days they've got a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Monroyd, who was the main brewer behind All In Brewing, who are one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. But as of summer 2020, they've just moved to a new brewery in Ringen, and they're actually considering brewing some lambic beer here, from what I understand. And there's the possibility for a bar and swimming facilities at this place too. The article I read about this brewery said they were going to try and make an experience brewery, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops, and hopefully I can get back up to Gothenburg at some stage and have a little look at that when they get it fully operational. I guess it'll be sometime after this whole COVID pandemic buggers off. But they opened up a bar in Stockholm in April of 2020 as well, and they've also opened up their own folk ale shop in Gothenburg too. So for those of you watching outside of Sweden, anything that is above 3.5% alcohol has to be sold in the state-owned Systembolaget alcohol stores. Anything below that can be sold in the supermarkets and things. So it is theoretically possible in Sweden to open up a bottle shop, but only if you sell things that are 3.5% and below. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make. But as of May 2021, when I'm reviewing this particular beer for you, they've produced around 110 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and as I say, they're probably one of the most recognisable Swedish craft beer brands these days. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Stigbergets Bryggeri for the moment. I've probably reviewed about 70 of their beers. So yeah, if you haven't tried some of their stuff, I highly recommend that you do. As I say, mainly known for their New England hazy IPAs, but they do some other really good beers as well in my experience. So yeah, that's it. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can also check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's crack on then and go on to Sudden Death Brewing Company, the German side of things. So, Sudden Death Brewing Company, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Timmendorfer Strand, which is in Schleswig-Holstein, to the north of Lübeck, which again is a little bit to the northwest of Hamburg, in northwestern Germany. Hope that description makes sense. But yeah, this company was started by two friends, Ricky Nagel and Oliver Schmuckel. So both of these guys are big hockey enthusiasts, hence the sort of imagery that this brewery has, but they often travelled to the US to watch hockey, and their favourite team was the Boston Bruins. But over there they encountered various IPAs and other American beer styles that weren't so common in Germany, but they soon became frustrated that they couldn't find these beers at home, and so they decided to start a home brewing business, and then Ollie trained as a beer sommelier as well. But they started to develop their recipes on a 50 litre brew kit that they had, and then they started gypsy brewing their beers on a larger scale at other breweries. These days they're operating mainly as a kind of contract brewery from what I understand, but they are hoping to kind of expand and have their own place from what I understand too. And it would be cool if they opened up their own bar in like Hamburg or Lübeck or something like that. I don't think that's something that they've really looked into yet, but these guys are one of a good number of German contract brewers who are brewing the American styles of beer that are popping up. It's very exciting times in Germany in terms of craft brewing at the moment. You've got the likes of Frau Gruber and First Viacek and various other sort of breweries popping up across Germany, as well as the traditional ones. Germany is just a terrific beer country, which I feel like I'm stating the obvious there, but yeah, you can have a lot of interesting beers down in Germany, of course. But these guys are continuing to expand. They've been focusing a little bit more on IPAs and getting a few more IPAs and things out there recently, whereas when I first encountered this brewery, it seemed to be more the kind of big darker and maltier beers that were available from them. So yeah, interesting times ahead for them, I'm sure. And as of May 2021, when I am filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 50 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, you can order their beers on the web shop, so I'll maybe need to see about doing a wee order from these guys at some stage. But yeah, definitely an interesting brewery to watch, and there are lots of other really interesting American style breweries down in Germany as well. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about them. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your brewery histories. We can get on and have a little look at this beer itself then. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. As you can see, we've got a lovely red squirrel on this one, the good type of squirrel, not the horrible grey ones. Black squirrels are pretty cool as well, those are big beasts. But there you can see the Sudden Death Brewing Company symbol down there, the hockey mask. And there you can also see Stigbergets as well on the top there. They have this kind of sort of nice calligraphy, well, not calligraphy is not the right word, but yeah, they've got the nice kind of writing there. You can see it's a gold topped can. I'm actually not sure what I paid for this one. I think this one must have been about 80 or 90 Swedish kroners. I think it could have even been a little bit more than that, but I think this one was pretty expensive, and I thought, you know, Sudden Death I knew were very good with Imperial Stouts, and I thought it'd be really cool just to have a go at this one, because I hadn't had an Imperial Stout from Stigbergets in quite some time. So I think this beer did cost somewhere about, you know, somewhere in the region of 90 Swedish kroners. So to translate that for you, that's about 9 euros. It's probably about in the region of £8 sterling, and then somewhere in the region of maybe $10.50 American. So yeah, an absolute monster of a beer. You can feel the weight in this can when you're holding it actually. So yeah, let's just get this guy out and we'll get on with the taste, and then I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us. Oh, and you can smell that as soon as you open it up. Jeez, it's crazy. So yeah, 14.5% Imperial Stout with cocoa, coffee, and what was the other thing that was in it? What type of nut was it? Yeah, cocoa, coffee, and hazelnut in this one. Smells absolutely awesome. So yeah, I'm wondering whether this is going to be one of these stouts that has flavour essence in it, or if it is going to be all kind of pure ingredients. But yeah, I love coffee stouts as well. Gouge Bryggeri in Gothenburg, they really got me into my coffee stouts. But when you open this beer up and just get a little whiff of it out of the can, you just get a lot of sweetness out of it. But I'm sure we'll pick up more in the flavour and the aroma. But I will say, it actually doesn't look so thick and sticky compared to something that you might expect of a 14.5%er. You can see that when we poured the beer, it poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy kind of medium beige head. They're not the darkest of beiges or tans that I've come across before, but there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but there is just pretty much nothing on the surface of this one. But at 14.5% ABV, you know, the head isn't going to hang around for all that often, to be honest, for all that long I should say. Brain is not working, it's not going to hang around for all that long. But yeah, as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one has poured a lovely, dark sort of ebony rosewood colour. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean, or the surface I should say, but overall it looks pretty nice. And remember, when it comes to the colour of these beers, it's determined by 1, the type of malts that you use, and then 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. A big Imperial Stout like this is probably going to undergo a wort boil of, you know, 4 to 5 hours or something like that. But I do wonder about this one, because it does actually seem, you know, quite liquid in a sense. It doesn't seem quite as thick and oily as you might expect to something that's 14.5%. So we'll need to see about that. We will need to see about this. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then. Nothing madly surprising about the appearance of this beer. So yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, straight away, this beer comes across, you get all 3 of these adjuncts in it. It's the adjuncts that jump out of this straight away at you. So you can smell the sort of dryness of the cocoa powder in this one, or cacao, and I'm never sure how to pronounce this, but yeah, you can smell the sort of dryness of the cocoa in this one, but at the same time it's got that lovely sweetness to it. So it smells like a kind of, if you think about a tub of Nesquik, or in Sweden it would be like Oh Boy or something like this, you can smell that sort of dry chocolatey powder coming out of this beer, which is very, very nice, of course. But yeah, on top of that you're getting some lovely, very, very smooth coffee. And as I've told you before, coffee is one of my favourite adjuncts to put in craft beer. You know, when it comes to coffee beans, they're pretty much as diverse as hops. You know, they can be grown in different places in the world, so you've got different water compositions, different mineral compositions in the soil, and a lot of it is to do with the MASL, the MASL, the meters above sea level at which the coffee's grown. So the higher the altitude you grow the coffee at, the more likely you are to get these big citrusy and fruity kind of flavours out of the coffee. So that's a very interesting point to make about this one. So yeah, for me, the coffee in this beer, it actually comes across as being quite aromatic. There's a little hint of a light fruity note to the bean as well, but otherwise it comes across with a very sort of smooth earthiness, and quite a bright earthiness in fact too. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what type of coffee would have been used in this one. My nose on coffee is not that refined, and I don't drink coffee outside of the different craft beers and things that I do. But yeah, I can appreciate the smell of a very nice coffee bean, of course. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is just very, very nice. And of course you do get a nice smooth hazelnutty quality in there as well. So yeah, the three adjuncts really form the backbone of the beer, and they're quite prominent actually, almost to the point where it's difficult to pick out the actual beer part, if that makes sense. It's quite difficult to pick out some of the stuff that you might pick up from the malt otherwise. But yeah, I mean, I can smell a little bit of a sort of oatmeal-y, brown bready kind of thing in this one, absolutely. Bit of a bread crust for sure. And there is an element of brown sugar to this beer. Like, there is a wee bit of a sweet caramel in there, a little bit of a toasty brown sugar as well. But you know, otherwise there's not. It is otherwise the adjuncts are kind of dominating the malty and yeasty side of the beer. There are one or two little woody undertones as well potentially. But yeah, the nuts in this one, the hazelnuts, are quite prominent, so they're covering up quite a bit of the woodiness and any other sort of nutty undertones that you might otherwise pick up out of this beer. But yeah, the aroma of this one is quite interesting for sure. So yeah, it's as I say, the adjuncts are just quite powerful in this one. But on the hoppy side of things, I'm trying to figure this out too. On the hoppy side of things, you do get a little touch of earthiness to this one. There's a wee bit of a herbal quality, some floral aromaticity as well, but remember, when it's a big Imperial Stout, these are not the most heavily hopped of beers. This one has been sitting in my fridge for 2 or 3 months, so maybe quite a bit of the hop potency will have dropped out of it, and you've also got a nice little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness to this beer as well. But the grassy notes for me are quite smooth. I mean, the hoppy character you get out of this one is quite smooth and straightforward in a sense. So yeah, there's not too big a green component to this one. A little bit grassy, a little bit herbal, wee touch of floral note, and some grassy elements in there as well. But on the fruity side of things, the beer does have a wee bit of character there. So you can definitely smell a wee bit of a juicy plum in this one. There's some nice figgy elements, and potentially a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty. Yeah, there is a wee bit of a blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing out of this one too. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes together, but the fruits come across as quite smooth rather than anything else. They don't come across as too sharp or anything like that, and maybe you'll get a wee hint of a kind of chocolate brownie or something coming out of this beer as well. So yeah, take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma of this one, but I would say, compared to other Imperial Stouts, the aroma of this one doesn't strike me as being madly complex. I think the adjuncts kind of dominate the aroma in this one to quite a big degree actually. But yeah, this one, it says on the side here it's got oat in it. This one, there's no wheat in this beer. So yeah, that's maybe one of the reasons. Oats don't tend to smell of too much on their own in stouts, if you like. You can just kind of smell. It's oatmeal that will give you a little bit more of aroma, I would think, than rather than oats. But yeah, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of this one anyway. But it's about time for us to get stuck into this beer. So yeah, this one is called the Gouge Away 14.5% Imperial Stout with cocoa nibs, coffee and hazelnuts in it, from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg here in Sweden, brewed in collaboration with Sudden Death Brewing from Timmendorfer Strand near Lübeck in the northwest of Germany. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers and prost. Ooh. I'll tell you something. This beer is a wee bit of a monster. You know, while it actually looks like, it really looks quite kind of liquid and things, it's a lot thicker in the mouthfeel than the appearance, whichever you believe. And I don't think I've had to make that comment on the channel before, so that's definitely an interesting point about this beer. But you can feel the booze in this beer right away. But yeah, that is very, very nice, we'll say. It's certainly one of the things that really does strike me about this beer, it's quite a straight shooting stout, but the flavour is one of these ones that's very straight shooting, but the flavour is just very rich, and that just makes it really, really enjoyable. So this is definitely going to be a nice sipper for me when I'm working away on my economics essay. So yeah, it's good. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? So straight away with this beer, you can feel that kind of nice, smooth, you can feel a little bit of the kind of roasty, toasty, black malty notes there. You do get a wee bit of a kind of, you get a very slight sort of toasty, well-fired bread on that, going right across the middle of your palate and into the back third of your palate as well. But on top of that, you've got the oats. You can feel the oats just smoothing that out in this beer. Absolutely, the oats are really smoothing out the backbone of this beer. It's only when you go into that back third of your palate that you can feel a little bit more of the kind of toastiness and things pushing their way out of the beer. But yeah, this one is very, very nice. The aftertaste in this beer is beautiful, actually. So you get a very rich flavour when you've got the liquid on your tongue, basically. But yeah, how do you say? You've got a very rich flavour to this when the liquid's on your tongue, but the aftertaste, you know, the aftertaste is really where everything kind of becomes a little bit more complex, if that makes sense. So yeah, backbone of the beer, as I said, toasty, well-fired bread crust, and then it's kind of smoothened out by the oaty side of things. So yeah, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you get the nice kind of coffee beans in there, and again, the coffee beans come across as very kind of smooth. There's a little bit of a darker earthiness to it, but overall the kind of earthiness out of the coffee is quite smooth in a way. It's a very smooth roast coffee, this one. You get a wee bit of a kind of aromatic note to the coffee as well, and also a little bit of a kind of fruitiness there. It almost has a wee bit of a raisiny and figgy fruitiness to it just within the coffee bean. So yeah, the coffee beans in this one I think are very nice, but like I say, they sit on the back half of that middle third of your tongue, so I can really appreciate that. I can certainly appreciate how that side of this beer goes together, absolutely. But yeah, the as you move further forward from that, you can feel a little bit, you know, underneath, as you move into the kind of middle of that middle third of your palate, you can feel the dry. It's almost like the coffee beans kind of sit on top, if you like, but I think maybe they're kind of blending a wee bit. The sort of dry cocoa powder that you're getting in this one comes out really nicely as well, so you can feel that nice dry sort of Nesquik-y oh boy type cocoa powder in this one. It really reminds me of the stuff you just mix into milk or water to make hot chocolate. You know, it really just reminds me of that. So yeah, but it has a wee bit of dryness to it. It's maybe got a higher cocoa percentage, you know, like 70% cocoa. You can just feel a wee bit of the dryness and bitterness to the chocolate in there, which I think works very, very well. But as you move further forward into that, into the front half of that middle third of your tongue, there's a wee bit more of a kind of hazelnutty element to it as well, which I like. So yeah, the the hazelnutty side of this beer as well is really nice. But it's interesting because as you move further into the aftertaste, it's kind of like the coffee just creeps forward a little bit on the that middle third of your tongue. So yeah, I think probably it's fair to say you've got, this beer is quite layered. You've got roasty toasty bread crust, you've got the oats just kind of smoothing everything out, then you've got the coffee which forms the base layer under that, but the coffee is a little bit thicker. So then in the middle third of your in the middle of that middle third of your palate, you've got the kind of cocoa nibs there, and then the nutty notes sitting towards the front. But then sitting on top of that, sitting in the very centre of the palate, you've got a nice brown sugary element to this one. And you know, it does have a wee element in the very centre of your palate. It does have a wee bit of a kind of treacly molasses sort of thing. But overall, the kind of brown sugars, which will be coming from the barley malts incidentally, that does have a bit of sweetness. So it's got treacly molasses in the middle. As you move further out from that, it gets gradually more kind of sweet and caramelly, and then you get a wee touch of a kind of toasty brown sugar element just towards the edges of the palate there too. So yeah, that's the main, this is of course the main complexity in this beer, and it certainly just works really, really nicely. It's quite a straight shooting beer in many ways. It's definitely not the most complex of Imperial Stouts that I've going to come across, but it's just really nicely crafted, and these days you can't really ask for much more than that, of course. But yeah, I think this covers the middle third of your palate where the biggest complexity is. But yeah, if we go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of chocolate brownie element there. You do feel a little bit of thickness building up in the beer, so there's a wee bit of chocolate brownie element and a wee bit of graininess in there. And on the back third of your palate, as I say, some of the coffee bean just kind of pushes over there, and then you've got the oats underneath and a bit of the kind of toasty black malt bread crusty sort of thing in this beer as well. So I really like how that goes together. That's the back third of the palate is quite nice. You can feel there is a wee bit of yeastiness sitting on top of that back third of your palate as well. So the flavour is a little bit taller, but it condenses down as you come further forward, and then you go into the middle third of your palate, and it condenses down quite a lot, and the flavours are kind of squeezed together a little bit. But it works. It absolutely works. Let's move on to the hoppy and fruity side of the beer though. So, yeah, hoppy side of things is kind of what you'd expect. Back corners of the palate, there is a wee bit of an earthiness there, and as you move further forward, the earthiness actually does kind of come forward quite a little bit. There's a wee touch of herbal quality there, and as you move towards the front corners of the palate, you'll get a little bit of floral aromaticity out of this one. So I really like how that goes together actually. Round the front curve of the palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of grassy and floral aromaticity out of the beer. I really like how that goes together as well. But yeah, the green component for me, it's actually a little bit more kind of prominent, if you like, than the aroma would have you believe. But there is a wee twist, just a little touch of a kind of zesty, grassy kind of thing to it. So I can appreciate that absolutely. So on that, on the front third of your palate then, and this is, as I always say, this is where you get the nice juicy fruity esters just rolling their way out of the hops. So if you go to that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that kind of chocolate brownie sort of thing again with this beer, and it's got a wee bit of a bitterness there, but the base of the front third of your palate is a kind of smooth, it is a little bit of a smooth, it is a wee bit of a sort of smoother brown bready element there. You do get a wee bit of a brown bread on the base of that front third of your tongue, but then as I always say, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So at the back of that front third of your palate, what can we say there? So you know, you do get a little touch of a raisiny note out of this one, but there's a lovely big sort of juicy plum to this beer, and then as you move further forward, it develops a little bit of a figginess, a wee bit of a blackcurranty note, and then on the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's got a lovely juicy blackberry kind of element to it. So yeah, I think that it's a really nicely executed beer, this one. The fruitiness has a lovely oiliness to it, which is something that I always look for in an Imperial Stout. but yeah, it does have just a little element of a kind of cakiness sitting underneath it, the fruity side of this beer, but that works very, very well for it. So yeah, I think that, to be honest, rounds off our description of the flavour. It's a lovely, lovely beer, this one, and the more that you drink of it, obviously you get more booziness out of it, but I think it's a very nicely rounded beer, this one. So yeah, quite straight shooting, not the most complex of Imperial Stouts, but it certainly works. So yeah, let's leave it at that. So to round off the review then, the mouthfeel, what can we say about this? So the mouthfeel for me, it's quite, I would say the mouthfeel is kind of bottom end of full bodied. Definitely, the carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It's a big, oily, smooth beer, this one. I mean, when it's got the oats in it, that kind of makes sense. And there's a wee bit of slightness to it as well, I would say. In terms of bitterness, I think we have, yeah, in terms of bitterness, I think there is a wee bit of bitterness to this one, maybe about 40 IBUs, 50 IBUs, but I think, to be honest, I would say that this beer is a little bit more like a kind of pastry stout, to be honest with you. There is a wee bit of bitterness to it though, which I think you need in an Imperial Stout. I like my Imperial Stouts to tell me, yeah, this is a dark beer, here's a little bit of roastiness. But the malt base in this one, it does give you a little bit of that. It's got a nice smooth kind of thickness to it because of the oats. There's a bit of a sweeter kind of brown sugary element in there as well. So yeah, the adjuncty side of this beer is very nice, and it's got a good balance between bitterness and smoothness and sweetness. All three of those things go together quite well. But then you've got a lovely oily fruity character to this one, and a few cakey elements push their way out of the beer later on as well. But I mean, overall, it's got a lovely vibe to it, this beer, a big thick Imperial Stout, and I mean at 14.5% ABV, that's kind of what you expect, but it didn't look anywhere near as thick in the appearance as it turned out to be in the mouthfeel. But yeah, an awesome beer once again from Stigbergets, and you know, Sudden Death, as I said, they've got a very good reputation with these Imperial Stouts, and I think the very first beer I tried from them was an Imperial Stout and I enjoyed it, so I need to get back and try a few more of their beers at some point for sure. But yeah, I guess we can round off the review there then. This one was the Gouge Away, a 14.5% Imperial Stout from Stigbergets in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and Sudden Death Brewing Company in Timmendorfer Strand near Lübeck in Schleswig-Holstein down in Germany. So yeah, awesome beer this one, and I'm glad I got to review it. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Stigbergets and from Sudden Death. We will no doubt return to both of these breweries at some point soon. But thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Sláinte, skål, cheers, and see you soon.